Hello! Welcome to Getting Started With, where our job is to make your job easier. On this episode, we are getting started with developing an audit program. In this video, you'll get tips and answers on how to develop an audit program for your audit. You'll learn the importance of research and setting objectives, identifying relevant risk areas, as well as procedures related to audit types. So let's get started. You can begin developing your audit program right away, before the first engagement letter is even sent. You should start researching your audit subject as soon as it's assigned to you. Whether you have 3 days or 3 months notice, starting research immediately will help you better understand how the area you are auditing operates. It's also important to identify and gather relevant resources and support. The IIA has a lot of published guidance, articles, and blogs written by practitioners. You can learn from the experience of other professionals and build on their knowledge. Then, when you're done, consider writing up your own experience for the IIA so others can learn from you. Maybe you'll even be writing the next episode of Getting Started With. In order to properly develop an audit program, you'll need to understand its objectives. Is your audit setting out to confirm something or look for errors? Is the audit's intent to verify compliance with regulations or possibly to determine if a fraud has occurred? Ultimately, the objective will dictate what procedures are in scope for your project. Once you know your objectives, you can determine your audit scope, such as what time period your audit will cover. If your objectives are to review a process, make sure to understand if that process was in place during the period you are auditing. Your audit program should align with audit objectives. Procedures for achieving these objectives could include examining supported documentation, conducting analytics, and possibly reperforming calculations. Once you have determined what your objectives and scopes are, and you've done some supporting research, you'll want to begin to understand how your organization operates with the topic at hand. For example, if the purpose of your audit is compliance, you will need to find out what regulations your organization must comply with, and if there are any industry frameworks or standards your organization follows. If your audit's objectives is more operational, you'll want to know the department's key metrics and what they report to senior management and the board. In a financial audit, your objectives may be examining how the organization is meeting assertions in an internal control framework, such as COSO's Internal Control Integrated Framework. No matter your audit's purpose, it is imperative that you understand the relevant controls, policies, and tools that are in place. There are a lot of different ways to approach an audit, and knowing your objectives will help you focus in on what's important. Here's a pro tip. Focus on the highest risk items. When developing an audit procedure, you'll need to identify and assess all relevant risks. Knowing the risk involved will help you to prioritize what procedures you decide to scope into your audit and which ones to leave out. Considerations such as timelines and budgets may cause you to scope out some procedures that focus on a lower risk area. When developing your audit procedures, you'll also need to consider if there's a data you'll need to sample. Make a plan for how you'll verify the completeness of your data set. Determine an adequate sample size, and then decide which sampling methodology you will use. As you've seen, developing an audit program requires research, risk assessment, understanding objectives, and more. These are not necessarily done in a specific order, but rather performed continuously throughout the audit process. Other things to consider when developing your audit program will be the roles and responsibilities of audit team members, and if you'll have access to necessary resources. You'll need to develop a communication plan to periodically update your stakeholders. These factors could all impact the procedures that will be included in your audit program. Designing an effective audit program requires a combination of careful planning, having relevant skills and expertise, and a deep understanding of the subject being audited. Any audit program should include aspects from all we've just learned. Procedures must address the objectives. Relevant risks need to be identified and prioritized. Any other circumstances that could affect how you gather evidence and conduct your audit must be identified and understood. Congratulations on completing Getting Started with Developing an Audit Program. Thank you for watching. There's much more to learn. On the next screen, you'll see links to suggested videos to view next.